In this video, we'll be talking about the ending to one of the best shows of all time. Answering questions like, does John Blackthorne ever leave Japan? Why did Yabushige smile back at Toranaga? And what does the future hold for all of these characters that we've grown to love over the last 10 episodes? I've picked up on a couple of moments that are really powerful and meaningful, but people are missing out on them. They call back to previous episodes, which hide the secret of their true meaning. So hit like and subscribe and settle in with me. I would love to share those things with you, and let me know in a comment if you spotted them whilst you were watching. Episode 10 of Shogun subverted everyone's expectation. Many were expecting the finale to be this great battle. Lots of people were hoping that it would be, and have even continued to comment that they're disappointed that it wasn't. I genuinely think they gave us a finale that even we didn't know that we needed, but the audience, much like the regents, may have missed the point. They said war is inevitable and we're expecting it to come just like the audience, but we got Toranaga'd. The war was already over and Crimson Sky had already happened. Let me explain. The finale was instead dedicated to the characters, their motivations, conclusions of their own best laid plans, and groundwork was laid for us to imagine what the future will hold for them. Their stories were concluded, the circles were completed. We opened with John Blackthorne as an old man, laying in his bed gripping Mariko's cross, his grandchildren asking him if a savage really gave him that sword. We are immediately led to believe that this is a flash forward. He makes it home, perhaps to his original family, perhaps to start a new one, but now he has grandchildren. But that is not the case at all. Just like the title of the episode, A Dream of a Dream, this is John's dream. When he's coming to following the explosion of the previous episode and Mariko is long buried, it's been days, we hear the children's question echoing around in his mind like he is waking from this dream. This is the first big clue that the old man scene is not a flash forward to a real future. John is being sent back and spends some time with the priest, who shares with him that the reason his life is being spared is that it was Mariko's wish, and he is fulfilling that wish. This is a poignant moment because it shows how highly this priest thought of his Lady Maria, and following that we get John on the boat, and I loved this. Like, Cosmo was so good in this episode. I feel like his acting absolutely went up into a higher gear through this whole thing. In this scene, we get him wanting to clearly openly sob and bawl on this boat, but trying to hold it together. There is so much emotion in his face, the keeping his shoulders firm so people wouldn't be able to tell. It's giving that in this time, the world was at a place where a man must be strong, and he's feeling that, and I'm sure that would have been part of British culture too, and still is to some extent. But there is also this nod to his assimilation and acceptance of the culture here in Japan, being stoic in the face of such tragedy, and the love that he feels from Mariko. Lady Mariko knew that she came here to die. One way or another, this was the plan, but she still laid her own plans to make sure that Blackthorne would not be joining her in death. This all leads into another one of my absolute favourite scenes of the finale. With John and Fuji sat here where once there was 3 and now there are only 2. How strongly her absence is felt, perhaps a nod to the Japanese concept of ma, or negative space. A conscious and meaningful emptiness, a pause in time. He looks to his right to acknowledge this and simply says, "No translator." Unlike John in the boat, I'm not going to hide from you that I was emotional through pretty much the entire finale. The scenes with John that follow her passing bring to the forefront how lost he is without her, not only because he had grown to love her and wanted to be with her and either take her back to England or stay here with her, but it goes deeper than that. She was his link to this world and the people around him. She was what was tethering him to every other soul that he interacts with in this place. Yes, he's learned some of the language and can muddle his way through, but I think they make a point of showing us that he is still very, very far from being fluent and able to express the things that he wants to and understand the words of the people around him. And in the scene where he finds that his beloved boat has been sunk, the one thing that he stayed here for, Mariko, is gone, and now his way home is gone too. He is stuck here without her. This is worth linking to the scene where the spy reveals himself to actually be a samurai who can speak great English. Blackthorne has a new translator now, a language lifeline in this world that he will never leave. At this point in the show, Blackthorne is strongly petitioning Toranaga to stop hunting for the spies in the village, saying that it was Mariko who had his ship sunk in exchange for John's life, and I think this scene is John's acceptance of his place in Japan. And it's Toranaga's testing of that. We are seeing John taking responsibility for this village and the people of it. Before the meeting, he sits at the stone garden where he saw the gardener, the one who was killed for John's own careless words and half-hearted order. When his request is denied, he glances into his future, the wind blows through. He sees his dream of a dream again, himself as an old man in bed, and says, "We live and we die." An acceptance of the philosophy Mariko had previously shared with him, which at the time he had rejected, now accepted. He kneels and prepares to end himself in protest of the treatment of the village. At which point, Toranaga stops him. John has passed the test. It's not really elaborated on by Toranaga what he was testing in John, but for me it showed that Blackthorne had given up on his own small war, his own purpose, accepted the way of things in Japan. This is a man who could not believe his eyes and was humbled into silence and bowing to Yabushige when he was going to off himself instead of drown. A man who could not understand Lady Mariko's need and willingness to pass on. He had continually willed her to live, although I think there was some acceptance of her point of view when he was willing to second her, and here now is that same man ready to pierce himself and end it all to make a point about a small village that meant nothing to him when he arrived. Toranaga is satisfied by this display and orders him to rebuild his ship and then make him a fleet, though he admits to Yabu later on that he'll just burn it again and that John Blackthorne will never leave Japan. I feel that John's glimpse at his future self once more proves that it was all a dream. It is not the future, it is not an old man in his bed looking back with regret. It is not even a sleeping dream, it is a waking thought, a man looking forward to a possible path that lies in front of him, and then letting it go. A second watch through of this scene will show it to be when Toranaga knows that all of his plans have come to fruition. We now know he's reading the word from Lady Ochiba that she will not back Ishido, that this is confirmation that he has won. In this moment he closes his eyes, and I believe that he is accepting this moment where he has won and kind of all of the sacrifice that has happened to this point, and more importantly, giving thanks and gratitude to Mariko. He stands and repeats the words of her final poem, acknowledging it as hers, and says what a bonfire her words have made. There is so much emotion in this line delivery and in his face. I think it really shows that Toranaga did not believe that her sacrifice was easy. I don't think that he played with these people like they were pawns on a chessboard and didn't care about the sacrifice. I've seen a lot of comments saying that Toranaga is this huge villain, that he cares about nothing but his own plans and is willing to sacrifice people to get it. And yes, he is willing to sacrifice people, but there are many moments in this where you can see in Toranaga that he values the sacrifice. And I think in this moment he is absolutely giving thanks to Mariko that has saved all of them and saved Japan in Toranaga's eyes. Yabushige has been losing his mind since Mariko's death. I'll call him Yabu from now on because I do struggle to say that name. He seems to have gone mad with grief and guilt and his own poor decision making. It's all gone very wrong for him and he knows it. He begs Toranaga for an end that befits him, but he's told just to simply slit his belly by sunset tomorrow. When the time comes, he gives his death poem to his nephew, which tells of leaving his body to be eaten by dogs. This is a callback to episode 8 where he mocks Toranaga's son's death of bonking his head on a rock as just being above being eaten by dogs, an acceptance from Yabu that he is now worthless and doesn't really deserve a better death than that. With his final act being pleading with Toranaga to just tell him what comes next, just tell him his plan before he dies, that's all he wants. And absolutely one of the best lines in the season where he says, "How does it feel to shape the wind to your will?" And Toranaga saying, "I don't control the wind, I only study it." Toranaga knows this is the end for Yabu and he has nothing more to hide from him. He shares his vision of what will happen in the coming month. All of his playing pieces are in their places and this is set in stone. This is their way of showing what would happen with the battle without actually taking us up to that point in the timeline and having to show the whole thing and having a big expensive battle. I don't know if this was purely for budget reasons, but I think that it worked perfectly for the show and I much prefer the way that they did things. This, to me, is a masterstroke. It's a perfect way of summing up the future, but also leaving it open. What we see is Toranaga's version of his best laid plans coming to fruition. And yes, what we know of Toranaga makes it very likely that this is how it will play out. But just like Blackthorne's vision of his own future, it is not necessarily exactly what will come to pass, but honestly, I would not bet against this man. He admits that Mariko did what an army couldn't. She was essentially Crimson Sky. It already happened. It's his dream for Japan to have this era of peace. It's kind of revealing that that's what he's wanted all along, and it is left unsaid that the way to do this is for him to be shogun. Yabu can see this and saying, "You're just like us, you wanted it all along, tell me." To which Toranaga says the most telling line in the finale, "Why tell a dead man the future?" The real meaning of this is being lost on a lot of people, but lots of people are catching it as well. If you're one of them, let me know in a comment, because this is an amazing callback to episode 1. Yabushige says to his nephew about why he won't tell Toranaga about the ship, "Why tell a dead man the future?" How does Toranaga know this line? Here in this shot, they make a point of showing the scribe behind. It's not his nephew that betrayed him, it's this guy. It shows the genius of planning and cinematography, this guy over the shoulder listening the whole time. And Toranaga sharing it with him now as his final words is a way of saying, "I knew it was you from the start. I saw everything that you did and said. Everything you did and said, I allowed you to do and say. You were another piece on the board under my control." It is an admittance of, yes, I'm behind everything, I control everything, including you. I will be shogun. To which Yabu can just smile back as if to say, well played. It's got this look that has elements of admiration, acceptance, a slight smugness of, I knew it, I knew that was the answer, that you were just like us, you want to be shogun. He ends him and his body falls off the cliff and into the sea, just like it may have done back in episode 1. His circle is closed. Personally, I believe Toranaga is behind everything, but I don't think he is the villain. He wishes for an era of peace for Japan and will do anything to make it come true. But then again, they say the best villains don't believe they are villains and they only believe in their cause. So maybe he is one. What do you think? Let me know in a comment. Another scene that is my favourite is Blackthorne taking Fuji onto the water to help her let go of her husband and son before she leaves to become a nun. Previously, she said that she knows that she should take them to the family temple, but she just wants them close by. Again, just another masterpiece of a scene, and so moving, amazing work from both of these actors. And then it's time for Blackthorne to say goodbye to Mariko, preparing to drop the cross into the water. When we get another secret callback with Fuji saying, pretty much the same words that Mariko said when they came for Fuji's son. Absolutely heartbreaking, and shows how much Mariko had an effect on these people, how big of a part she played in everyone's life, and just how much she meant to everyone. The show ends with John and the village pulling the wreck of his ship back to shore. We already know from the previous conversation that even when he rebuilds this, Toranaga is just going to burn it down again. And the entire show ends with John looking at Toranaga with an almost knowing kind of smile and nod. And they talked about this moment specifically on the official podcast for the show. And the showrunner saying that this shows that John is happy. He's kind of aware that he's never going to get away from Japan, but he has let go and he's found home here. He has this new community, these villagers that he cares about now, a new crew helping him lift his ship back to shore, and he is content. And Toranaga is looking out over the water when the title of the show, the word Shogun, appears. To me, just symbolically confirming that he will be, and in some way always has been, Shogun. His future is inevitable. And that concludes this recap of the finale and some of my favourite scenes and their secret and hidden callbacks and meanings. What did you catch in the finale? Let us know in a comment below. And what did you think of the show overall? I think this is one of the best shows in the last 10 years, perhaps of all time. I absolutely loved it. It's incredible that this is a one and done. These 10 episodes are it. There is no following up season, and there's some real beauty in that, I think. You might even say that flowers are only flowers because they fall. And this show absolutely has bloomed and fallen, and I thank everyone involved for making it. And thank you for watching, you little flower. I appreciate you. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Make sure you like and subscribe for more of my recaps and reviews. This is my movie club, essentially my love letters to the things that I love to watch. Until next time, there are some videos on the screen if you want to go on another adventure with me, and check out the description for not only my gaming channel, but my podcast where I read bedtime stories to help you sleep for free. Until then, thank you, and good night.